Your husband is cheating on you with your employee. She is expecting a child from him. Be careful," said a strange voice, calling from an unknown number. Lauren clutched the phone in her hand and began to stare intently at the female employees. She was very jealous of her husband, though Felix never gave her any apparent reason. Lauren headed the company, which had been given the gift of her father, and her husband worked as a programmer for the same company. They hardly ever bumped into each other at work, and many employees didn't even know that they had been married for 10 years. The woman stood up from her favourite director's chair and began walking along the window, peering out into the hall, where the employees were working at their computers. Some of them were making coffee, some were scratching the back of their heads, some were staring intently into the monitor. A couple of guys were discussing something excitedly, pointing at a paper on the table. A girl at the reception was apparently playing with her phone. Suddenly, Lauren noticed a young woman stroking her round belly and staring thoughtfully out the window. Lauren put on her glasses and began to scrutinize her. Suddenly, Felix came out of his office and went straight to the same woman's desk, holding a folder of documents. As he approached, he began to explain something to her. She nodded with a smile. Then she answered something, took the folder, put it on her table, and followed Felix into his office. She came out very soon with a sheet in her hands and sat down at the table, opened the folder, and began typing something on the keyboard. Lauren bit her lip and, pulling herself together, summoned the secretary. "Tell me, Roberta, who's that manager over there by the window?" she asked, not taking her eyes off her husband's alleged mistress. "That's Michelle. She's been with us for 3 years. She used to work with programmers, and now that being pregnant, she asked to be transferred to managers temporarily." Lauren's confidence that a mistress had been found grew stronger, and she asked to invite her into her office. After a while there was a knock at the door, and a young woman, who seemed to Lauren attractive enough to interest her husband, walked in. Lauren didn't beat around the bush and immediately asked if Michelle was married. "No, not yet. We were going to get married, but it hasn't worked out yet," replied Michelle with confusion and not understanding why the boss was asking this. "And what's the baby's father's name?" asked Lauren, pointing to the belly. "Felix," replied Michelle. "I'm sorry, but why are you asking that?" "Why am I asking? Do you have the impudence to ask me such a question?" Michelle looked perplexed at her boss, because she was even a little frightened by her behaviour. Lauren put a piece of paper and pen in front of Michelle and ordered her to write a resignation letter. "Why?" asked Michelle through her tears. "Please, I can't be out of a job now." "You should have thought about that when you have been leading an immoral life." "I'm sorry, but you should understand me. My Felix—" "Shut up!" shouted Lauren, unable to listen even a word about her husband. "Don't you dare say that name here. Felix was never yours." "We've been together for 5 years. Please, get in my position. I can't get a new job now," pleaded Michelle, but seeing Lauren's rage, she took a pen and with a shaking hand wrote the letter. "I want you out of here in 5 minutes. Otherwise, the guards will escort you out." Michelle jumped out of the office as if she had been scolded, and when the secretary asked her a question, she answered that she had been expelled for immoral behaviour and ran away, sobbing. Lauren watched as Michelle was throwing hurriedly her things into her bag. Her colleagues surrounded her, but she hurried to leave the office, and people were looking at each other perplexedly and glancing occasionally at the windows of the director's office. Lauren turned and walked to the opposite wall, looking out the window. Seeing the hunched-over woman, Lauren nodded contentedly, and, informing her secretary that she wouldn't be in the office for 2 days, left too. Getting into her car, she texted Felix that she would stay at the summer house for a couple of days, and that he shouldn't come because she wanted to be alone. When she entered the house, the first thing she did was pour herself a glass of wine. She drank it in one gulp and smashed the glass against the wall. Then she took her and Felix's wedding photo from the table and threw it against the wall too. "I'll show you yet," she whispered. "You'll be sorry for hurting me. I can't be treated like that." In the evening, Felix called, but Lauren shouted that he did not dare call her and turned off the phone. An hour later, he arrived. By then, Lauren was so drunk that it was impossible to even talk to her. When Lauren woke up in the morning, she saw her husband sitting in the chair and immediately remembered the events of the previous day. The last thing she wanted to do right now was to have an argument. Her head was cracking from the alcohol she had drunk the day before. "Lauren, why did you fire Michelle?" asked her husband, looking into her eyes. "Oh, you have come to stand up for her? You've both lost your conscience. Get out of here, and don't you dare come back here." She pushed her husband out, stepping over the terrible headache and, back on the couch, burst into tears. 2 days passed, and she did not want to go back to the city. Felix came one more time, but she would not let him in the house. She did not turn on the phone, but realizing that she would not be able to stay all her life and that she had things to do, Lauren returned home. Felix was at home despite the working hours. "Should I dismiss you for absence at work too?" she asked angrily. "I took work home. It's allowed, if you remember. I was waiting for you. Lauren, I don't know what's gotten into you, but I have to talk to you about Michelle. She's having a hard time. I didn't know about her problems before, but her colleague told me everything, and you must get her back." "What exactly didn't you know? That you made my subordinate pregnant?" Lauren threw the book at him in anger, but he dodged it and caught Lauren in his arms. "What kind of nonsense are you talking? Lauren, listen. Sit down and listen." He forcibly seated his wife in a chair and held out a glass of water. "Michelle is a good woman, but she's in trouble now. She was supposed to marry, but her groom has had a car accident and he is in the hospital until now. After work, Michelle spends all the evenings by his bed. She pays for a rented apartment. She also has to buy medicine, and now she has lost her job. No one gives a job to a pregnant woman, you know this. She has nothing to pay her rent, and soon she may be out on the street. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you're wrong, Lauren." The woman was shocked. "But they told me she was pregnant with your baby." "Who said such nonsense?" wondered Felix. "I've never cheated on you once in my life, because I love you very much." I don't know, the number was unidentified. But if you're telling the truth, let's go to the hospital." Lauren jumped to her feet and pulled her husband with her. At the hospital, they managed to talk to Felix's attending physician and found out that he needed a paid operation. Without thinking, Lauren asked for a bill and paid the full amount. Then she went to the ward and apologized to Michelle, saying that she would be paid for days of her absence and that she could go back to work at any time. A couple of days later, her husband found out who had called her. To Lauren's great surprise, it turned out to be her deputy, who had long been making some kind of hints of a love affair to her, but she ignored them. The very next day, he was no longer working for their company, and Lauren has forever learned the lesson that she should not be unreasonably jealous of a loved one, because it can lead to irreversible consequences.